The Stop Drop Gaming's F1 show is brought to you by Stop Drop Gaming's F1 section, supporting F1 2015 on Xbox One and F1 2014 on Xbox 360. League spaces are available. Visit stopdropgaming.com today to sign up.
Hello everybody and welcome to Stop Drop Gaming's F1 show. Tonight with me I have Ollie.
Hello.
Stephen.
Hello.
Ian.
Hello.
And Chris.
Hello.
This last weekend the F1 circus rotated round to Hungary with arguably the best race of the season so far, with a complete Mercedes disintegration. Hamilton and Rosberg doing great in all the practice sessions and quali, nailing the front row between them, remember rightly, just to end up Rosberg not even on the podium, Hamilton not on the podium, having to rely on safety cars and everything to even stand a chance of scoring reasonable points. Guys, what do we make of this pretty much disintegration from the team?
Well, Hamilton made a pretty terrible start, didn't he, to begin with, off the line. And then just balls up, just made constant errors. I don't know whether he had Jules Bianchi on his mind, and that was distracting him. It was quite a poignant moment at the beginning of the race when they all stood around in a circle with the helmets in the middle. It
felt kind of eerie.
Yeah, it did. And maybe that was on his mind as he was starting the race. And it just sort of went from bad to worse for him, didn't it? He blamed his teammate for cutting across him when actually he didn't do anything at all. But I'm sure Lewis Hamilton's desperate to blame Nico Rosberg for anything that happens to him, because he doesn't blame himself ever.
You have to think, though, the last couple of races Mercedes have had characteristically slow starts, with them being completely nailed off the line by the Williamses at Silverstone, now being nailed by the Ferraris at Hungary. Is there something that needs changing with the car, do you think? Or is it just...
Well, I think I said it a few weeks ago, that I think they're just getting complacent. They think they can win every race without making any effort. And they just need to pull their finger out, I think.
Anything you would like to add, Stephen?
Well, I think Rosberg's final tyre choice probably lends itself to what Ollie's saying, to be fair. Where everyone else was going soft tyre, they decided to go for the harder one.
In just a simple effort to, Hamilton's on the prime tyre, why don't we just simply match him and play it that way, rather than... He could have quite easily gone on to the options, but he was fairly conservative.
The thing is it opened the door, and Rosberg could have had it all go his own way. They chose the wrong tyre. It opened the door for Ricciardo. Ricciardo making some stunning dives down into turn one. Tried something, didn't work. There was contact. I think Rosberg and Toto Wolff have been at pains to blame Ricciardo. Not so sure I see it that way. I think he could have given him a bit more space, but ultimately that's what ruined a glaring opportunity for Nico Rosberg to steal a march on Lewis Hamilton going into the summer break. Terrible. Really, Mercedes need to pull their socks up. They've got the fastest car, but have they got the best people at the moment? Not for want of trying. However, I guess they need to try a little harder.
Do we believe that even with Rosberg's early second stop, so to speak, and that he could have quite easily made it on the options with the fact that the safety car was perfectly timed for him? Ian, Chris, was this simply to a conservative move, or was it just straight, Hamilton's doing that, let's just match him?
Well, I mean, as far as, like you said earlier, 2 races in a row, Mercedes have had such poor starts. I know at the beginning of Silverstone, there was massive talk about Hamilton changing his clutch. I don't know, not so much about Rosberg, but 2 really poor starts. I mean, obviously lap one was just awful for Hamilton. He couldn't really piece together much after that. I mean, he did try his best, but obviously the collision with Ricciardo kind of put a nail in the coffin on his race, to be honest. Rosberg, like you said, he just followed suit and got a bit complacent with his tyre choice at the end. He could have made it on the soft. It would have been a bit of a struggle, but with the power in numbers that the Mercedes have, they could have made it work. But it's just, I think it just comes down to that eventually teams will catch up and Mercedes will get complacent. I think that's what we're seeing now, to be honest.
I think, to be fair, if you're running in second place or third place, you've got to try and do something a little different to trouble the front one or two. And they didn't do anything. Rosberg didn't do anything. He just literally followed suit. It's like he'd settled for the points. He was content to get those points because he knew that he was outscoring his chief rival. And I don't buy any of this stuff that's come out in the press that they don't watch each other. When you look at a championship table and you see who the next person is, especially if it's the other person on the other side of the garage, of course you're going to be interested. Last season, complete proof of that. So I don't buy into any of the propaganda that Mercedes have put out there. They made mistakes. They paid for it. End of.
On that basis, what do we have to think about Raikkonen with his chances of even getting a drive next season with what is arguably horrific luck? Hungary with start, solid second place.
I read something, or I heard somebody say that Raikkonen's actually as fast as Vettel in that Ferrari. He's just had all the bad luck.
Well, what about this weekend? Just gone. How much bad luck can one man have? I mean, really.
I think we have to say it was pretty much taking out anything that really happened after the safety car. At that point, he was pretty much comfortable second place, and yet reliability and other things have just again cost him any chance of quality scoring points. And wow, is this his last chance in F1? Do we think if he doesn't get a drive next season?
I mean, as far as it goes, we're halfway into the season, over halfway into the season, and as much as it hurts to say, I think that this has got to be Kimi's last season. I mean, since Australia, he hasn't had really what it takes. He showed really good pace in Bahrain, but apart from that, it's been quite lackluster. Obviously, we've had some incidents of the crash in Austria, and I think he did all he could in Hungary, obviously being Sebastian's rear gunner, but mechanical issues and bad luck, it's part of the sport, and obviously, the head of the teams aren't really going to look at it like that. They're going to look at, what position did he place, and
they're going to look at points on the board, times on the podium.
Exactly. So I think this will be his last season, although he maybe has the pace for one or two more seasons, but I don't think that, Ferrari are going to look at it like that. Although he is a great driver, but I think maybe it's his time to maybe move along, unfortunately.
With all the drama, chaos, safety cars, everything like that in the race, things played amazingly well into the hands of McLaren. Would we have seen, even at the start of the weekend, this would have been a dream 5th place for them. It's a timely boost. It's put them, roughly 5-6 points behind Sauber in the championship at this point. How, going into the summer break, this must be a great motivator for them going on. Do you think they can turn this into regularly getting places like that, Chris?
Well, I think it was a combination of, obviously, all the incidents that happened. I mean, there was a fair few retirements. But you're right, that was definitely, it would have been the dream at the beginning of the weekend for McLaren. As far as regular places that high up the grid, I think that'll more what type of circuit it is, because obviously Hungary is more of a fast-paced circuit as opposed to what we have next, which is kind of a bit of a mix of long straights, where I don't think the McLaren will fare too well in Spa, obviously with the less than powerful engine they've got. But I mean, when it comes to tracks like maybe Brazil, I think they have a pretty good shot of getting some points there, but I don't really see it being a regular thing.
Steve?
Well, they're due, apparently, a large upgrade, I hear, for Spa. And to be fair, going into the power tracks, based on how they've been for the last load of races, they probably need some, don't they? I think for McLaren's sake, they need to have repeat performances of these kind of results. They need to start getting some reliability. They need to get both cars into the points. They may be 5 points behind Sauber, who seemingly have fallen off the performance bubble now, haven't they? I don't foresee them getting anywhere close to the front again, unless they have equally their own updates. But then that would be the last updates for the season, really, wouldn't it?
Right, especially at this time of the year.
Well, yeah, I think this is their sort of last throw of the dice for like the smaller teams. But McLaren are going to be constantly developing. But the key is when do Honda spend their tokens for the engine, and they need to be spending them now, as far as I'm concerned, to maximise. Not all of them.
Okay.
I haven't got a breakdown of the list here, but they are certainly the team.
Got some in the bank.
Yeah, they've certainly used the most of the teams, but I think everyone's kind of targeting the second half of the season as to kickstart
when it comes
wherever
to
they are. Yeah,
with
exactly.
The big power tracks and
yeah. But I'm not sure how that will fare. Will they move up the order? Will they steal a march? I mean, they're always bringing. Well, every team's kind of bringing updates, but McLaren seem to have been pretty good with bringing chassis updates, haven't they? A little winglet here, a few fins there. They've been quite good with it, but it still doesn't hide the big failing on the car is the engine.
It's probably the most vitally important part of the car, really, isn't it?
Well, just to put into context, we're all part of a forum where we like to go racing on Sundays. And the new game, F1 2015, every single YouTuber has come out and said the whole point of the game is straight line speed. And that's what McLaren don't have in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as McLaren goes, I think the best they can hope for at the end of the season is they're going to have to settle for 8th. I mean, looking at the standings, they're just above Manor by 17 points. Sauber's obviously ahead of them by 5. And then up the road is Toro Rosso on 81. I mean, I don't see how they're going to close that much of a gap because, I mean, Toro Rosso performed well above their station with their 2 rookies. So I think that is really the best they can hope for is taking that 8th place off of Sauber.
Which, for a team which has been, in the past decade, fighting for title after title after title, it's a massive fall from grace. We can't deny this. But
yeah, they've allowed themselves to drop into this situation, though.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, it's different waves and whatnot, isn't it? But and the cream of the crop will always rise to the top. But there were signs, weren't there? And they simply didn't arrest them. And by the time that they did, too much had gone on. They've lost too many key personnel, and they're having to start essentially again from scratch, aren't they?
Well, where do we move on to now? We have what seems like a weekly topic for us, Pastor Maldonado and his sheer shenanigans and crashing, and he was having incidents this weekend. It was to the point where, Maldonado's had an accident with someone else. You don't instantly think we better check the footage. We always presume he's at fault now. Has he really earned that much of a reputation?
Well, I think the 3 incidents that he was involved in. The first one was the when he had the accident with Perez. And I think that, I mean, there were a couple of other, Hamilton did that, didn't he? He crashed into 2, I can't remember who it was. Was it Ricciardo or?
There was a bit of trading wheel paint, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, that could have been an excuse because everyone else was making the same mistake. But to speed through the pit lane, you've got a button on your steering wheel that says pit lane and it reduces your speed. How hard is it to press that when you enter the pits?
Seemingly quite hard.
Yeah, and the other one, overtaking a car under a safety car. I mean, just stupid, simple mistakes, and he's making them week after week. How long can Lotus put up with it? I mean, as long as the money's coming, I suppose.
That's the key thing. Do you think, even though former GP2 winner, proving that he has, in theory, some talent, but how long will Lotus keep saying the money's gonna keep him there?
Well, you have the Racely camera footage of Carmen Jorda, don't you? A lady by no stretch of imagination. We know why she's in that team. She's in that team because we get camera footage, therefore sponsors get their name. But she's 3 seconds a lap slower than the division she was racing in last time. So, no offence to the lady, but she's hardly sort of top racing material from past performances.
Definitely,
but a nice camera shot will get the sponsorship, sort of thing. How many drivers does a team have to sign, aka Sauber? How many drivers does a team have to sign in order to get enough funding to put 2 cars on a track for 20 races a year, or next season 21? They say, isn't it?
With supposedly Azerbaijan joining the calendar. But both the beginning and end of the race, tributes were led by the drivers for the sad and tragic passing of Jules Bianchi, arguably someone who has been earmarked for the bosses at Ferrari to eventually have a seat in the car. Wow, the words what Vettel said at the end of the race were quite touching. He must have had a great atmosphere and presence around the drivers. How good do we think he's been, and are we going to see a huge push in safety technology?
Well, I think safety is always going to get pushed and pressed forwards in the sport because of the passing of Senna. Not only that, prior to that, you got your Jackie Stewart and all those people through the 60s, 70s, and the 80s were pressing for it as well, weren't they? It was just the catalyst at the time of Senna kind of put it a lot more on the sort of forefront of people's minds. And I think Bianchi is a young up and coming star who was earmarked for a Ferrari seat after Raikkonen, which again goes back to what we were saying before. They're clearly thinking about it. I think such a loss of a potential or definite race winner and potential championship material, I think it demands to be looked at. I mean, people can say that he was doing this and doing that during the flags and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, racing drivers paid to go fast, and he tried to go fast, and he paid the price, didn't he? Yeah, he paid the price. And yeah, it's going to be a big loss. The fact that safety has moved on so far, that it's been 21 years between deaths, speaks volumes, I think, for the effort and the energy that's been put into turning essentially a 200 mile per hour rocket into a safety cell where drivers can walk away from it. If that tractor hadn't have been there, there's no doubt he would have got out and walked away from that.
Yeah, I thought the tributes were perfect at the weekend. I thought, as I said earlier, the ring with the helmets in the middle was really touching. And Sebastian Vettel's comments at the end of the race were absolutely spot on. I think we'll never know if he would if he was going to be a world champion in the future, but I think the signs were there definitely.
I mean, it's obviously a loss because being able to score points in that Marussia, I mean, it's similar to what Fernando did at Minardi. As far as the tributes go, it was amazing to see all the drivers, standing in a circle with the Bianchi family, with the helmets, and obviously Jules is in the centre. It clearly did affect most of the drivers on the day, some more than others, obviously, but Sebastian's tributes were obviously very sincere and very genuine. Same with Kvyat's, same with Ricardo's. Obviously, all of the drivers paid their respects during the week as well. As far as safety goes, I don't think much will get changed. As Eccleston said, it was merely just down to the crane not supposed to be in there that ultimately led to the massive incident. Like you said, he would have walked away if it hadn't have been there, but obviously that wasn't the case. And sadly, we lost potentially another world champion.
Thank you for listening. If you're interested in joining us for a future recording of the F1 show, please feel free to message us at stopdropgaming.com, where you'll also find our F1 leagues in both 2014 and 15, as well as other events in Assetto Corsa, as well as many different other games. Please check out the forums if you're interested. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Good night. Need a piss. I just do my good night. Good night. Okay, I'm going for a piss now.
Go for stop it.